Hello, everyone. Welcome to Recipe for Reality. There's Zach with the entrance, making his way to his seat. It's been a
Hello,
little
everybody.
while. It's been a little while. I was in the show, then Zach was in the show. We had time in the middle to kind of talk a little bit preseason, but we haven't talked about Big Brother yet, and that's the big topic you see in the title. But also, Bachelorette and Challenge are also happening. If we are a little crunch for time, or go so long in our Big Brother discussion, we could save the other stuff for later. But the big main topic is Big Brother because this is like our bread and butter.
Mhm.
This is our butter beans, if you will. And I'm really excited to be talking about it. Zach, just blanket thoughts on this season so far because it has been a roller coaster.
Yeah, so like Dylan said, we've been kind of all over the place the last couple of weeks. I can't believe it's already August. The last time we were talking, it was not even, we were a couple of like hours away from
The premiere.
what felt like the premiere. And so it's been a long month. And honestly, um, what started off as a pretty, I don't want to say boring season, but it was uninteresting. We had
Yeah, definitely,
kind of we
definitely not
immediately,
boring, but infuriating in my opinion. Like I
mm,
hated the beginning of
yeah.
the season. I thought it started so
Well,
badly.
it was not. It was kind of what we always hate about Big Brother, at its worst, right? Immediate targets for no good reason,
No
no
justification.
substantial, no substantial or blanket justification. Just very, we got to get in, we got to get someone out, so we got to make someone the villain. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we can go into it a little bit. Dylan and I's winner picks for the season could not have been more different.
Well,
Could not have been more different.
yeah, and I think it's kind of
You know what I
poetic that
mean? Not different
it's
as in
poetic
like,
that week one, let's say Paloma doesn't leave, Taylor gets evicted, and the plan was to have this. I don't even remember the backstage. I think it was called twist. It's been so long, because now we've like totally pivoted from that because Paloma kind of ruined that twist. But we'll talk about that in a bit. But Paloma and Alyssa and Brittany were the three backdoor
right?
backstage. Brittany was going to be safe, which meant it was going to come down to Paloma and Alyssa. And I believe Pooch, as a backstage boss, would have chosen one to go up against Taylor, who was evicted. And he
Yes.
probably would have picked Paloma. So we would have seen Taylor and Paloma, our two winner picks, facing off. And even if it was Alyssa, we saw in the HOH comp that followed that Taylor beat
Hmm.
Alyssa in that challenge, and that was likely going to be the backstage challenge. So I think my pick would have been safe either way, but I think it's kind of crazy that my pick was the target of week one, or the backup target, I should say, because Michael was really the target until he won the veto. But
My
your target,
God.
your winner pick ended up being a self evictee, and we don't see that a lot. And if we do see it, we usually see it early like this. But I was surprised because honestly, Paloma, as problematic as she was, as delusional at times as she was, a lot of the time she was playing a good game. She had everyone wrapped
She
around her
really
finger
was.
except for Taylor and Michael. And I think that's what made Taylor and Michael targets. Because Michael comes across very smart, he knows the game, and you know it from just seeing him. And Taylor,
Yeah.
I think the edit kind of didn't serve her too well in that first week because it kind of made it sound like
No.
her parading around in the dress was kind of what got her targeted. Paloma told her to march around that dress. Jasmine urged her to walk around that dress. So it's not like she just wanted to flaunt that all over the place. It's just she had confidence, and that confidence, especially coming from a strong Black woman, can be intimidating to some who are just not
Yeah.
as with it, are kind of problematic is the word. But I think it's just so interesting that our winner picks are the ones that, like, on eviction night, because the
Of
feeds went
course.
out and we kind of speculated that Paloma could have left, but we didn't know confirmation until it came back on. But we were like, it's either me or you going home tonight, like our winner picks, and that was
Right.
just crazy to see in a week one.
You know what? It's disappointing. This is now my second CBS show of the. No, sorry. Actually, I'm 3 for 3. I picked the first boot on Survivor. My winner pick for the Amazing Race went home first, and
I
my
can't
my
believe that.
winner
Yeah,
pick for Big Brother was a self evictee. It is
I
not, and
can't believe
I don't
that.
think
Wow.
we haven't had a self evictee. I don't believe
Since Megan, correct?
since Megan.
Oh well,
And
Celebrity Big Brother, Chris Kattan, but yes, yes.
well, and there's talk of even Celebrity Big Brother. There's talk of that less being a self eviction and more being I have no choice. I've got to
because of an
leave because of
injury.
my back.
Right. True.
We don't really know, but
Yeah.
I mean, to speak a little bit on Paloma, because we won't get to talk about her
Yeah.
for very much longer. It's sad. I'm actually, I didn't love all the things she was doing, but I spoke once. I once had the opportunity to speak with a Big Brother contestant, and talk a little bit about the process and, like, why, what happens, how does it happen, what do you guys do in the lead up? And one of the things that they said to me was, there's no guarantee that you're going to get what you need, health wise in the house, whether it's, your specific, specific
Medications.
toiletries, things like that. But the medications was the big one. So what they advise you to do, from my one little bit of source, is they advise you to wean yourself off of it. And so what happens is,
So you're not as
you
dependent
get the
in the
people who,
house.
right. And so what people do, they do one of two things. They either kind of take it up until they're about to go in the house, or what my person, who I spoke to, said they did. They started weaning themselves off of it probably about a month to a month and a half early. So by the time they were in sequester, they were getting adjusted. They were figuring out kind of what they were going to be doing, and how it was making them feel, so that by the time they finally got into the house, it wasn't such a shell shock. Whereas other contestants who let them go, right up until when you're in the house, the paranoia of the house mixed with the imbalance in your brain from whatever the medication might be doing, it just kind of, what we see happen is, we see Paloma, we see her, someone who has a great game to play, but just has I mean, she didn't sleep for like 46 hours or something like that. And it is honestly and truly, I'm happier that she left, not because I didn't want to see her play. Obviously I wanted to see her play.
Right.
But I really wanted to, I would love to see her, get a shot. It's kind of like the,
Which we won't,
like the Jackson
unfortunately.
thing. We won't. She'll never play again, and that's okay.
Survivor. I mean, this reminds me of Survivor, because Jackson most recently, first evictee, and not a self evictee, but pulled from the game because of medical reasons. Because of that, because they either were untruthful in listing their medications, and then they were off a medication that they needed, that they quit right before they went on. So it was just a body imbalance. But we even saw in the older days of Survivor where, nowadays, thank God, cigarette smoking is less of a thing. But back then in Survivor Panama, Shane, without his cigarettes, kind of led him to go a little. It didn't do anything bad to him physically, but it was more like, more just mentally. He was kind of going a little bit cuckoo, but it made for great character moments for Shane, because he's one of the great all-time characters of Survivor. But I mean, it can really take its toll, and I do feel for Paloma on that sense. But at the same time, a lot of the stuff that's come out afterwards, like on her TikTok and stuff, just the things she said, a lot of it still, I feel like there's a lot of room for growth in terms of the Taylor stuff, and learning how to speak about that kind of stuff. You can be outright and say, I was intimidated by her. It's fine to say you're intimidated by her, but then to make it more personal and mean back toward her, I think was not the plan. I mean, I think if she was intimidated by her, she should have talked to her and be like, hey, I'm kind of intimidated by you. Like, let's talk about this. Because that is an implicit bias. Like, that is still not great that you're intimidated by someone just based on who they are. But I mean, I think it's about openness and communication, and not using that as a way to attack someone and be personal and, take someone down and make someone feel awful and small. And it really sucked to see, especially because it was our two winner picks. And I think by that time, all of America had kind of rallied around Taylor and are still rallying around Taylor. So much so that the house then began to rally around Taylor in a bit, which we'll talk about. But let's talk about this week 2. Because week 2, we see the classic Brent champagne. I'm going to go up as a pawn. I got you guys.
God.
Take one for the team, and then going home as a result. And this was Pooch. And I got to admit, I was a little disappointed to see the backdoor twist didn't play out, but I like how they kind of then use that as a way to like create a new type of HOH where they would have people going up against one another to earn their way into the next HOH. And that's where we see Jasmine take her fall. That's where we see the pie competition where Jasmine wins despite being injured and then has to run the house. Jasmine's such an interesting character.
You mean wheel around the house? You mean
wheel around the house like Christmas. But it's so interesting because like Pooch just all of a sudden is like, I want to be the one to take out Taylor. And again, it's like, what is the obsession with Taylor? I just will never understand why they were so gung-ho about getting her out. Usually when there's a common house target, wouldn't you want to string them along? You know, like that would be my thing.
Well,
I'd be like,
and
well, let's go for the people that no one's looking at and target them rather than the person who's up front in spotlight. And I think that's what kind of the leftovers stemmed from was, hey, let's all
right,
take, the fact that we're all on the outs and kind of band together and go after some of the people who are incredibly safe, like an Amira, like a Nicole at the time. Nicole
right.
became a bigger threat because she wasn't as in the shadows, but like Pooch, I don't understand the move at all. Honestly, I don't
So
understand it at
this
all.
is where we see that CBS is really good at their jobs when they cast these shows, because I think honestly that's that is a testament to they knew what they were casting when they cast Pooch. And I think I will say, aside from the hatred of Taylor, which I do think is just so unbelievably unfounded, um we have great characters this season. I mean, to Pooch in and of himself was a really great character. To see what we knew was what could have been either an alpha male, who does what he does, which is gets himself out of the game early because of just making the dumbest move that you could ever possibly make, or we did see him in that first week really like rallying around the other guys in the house.
The
It's very
guys,
rare
yeah.
that you do get the full all guys alliance that works kind of in tandem, but he was
Mm-hmm.
close. I mean, they were all
Yeah,
kind of. Michael was on board because he knew it was going to keep him safe. Kyle
yeah,
was on board. Joseph was on board. Like, he
yeah.
had the house pretty much ready to do what he needed it to do. And we had an all guys versus all girls for like a hot second,
Yeah. And it's
the
interesting.
smallest of seconds.
Yeah. I was going to say it's
Go
interesting
ahead.
how a lot of these alliances rallied around the previous boots because we see like the target I mean once Paloma left, like that post pack formed as like a let's avenge Paloma, and then as soon
Right.
as Pooch goes, we see Turner then being like I'm going to take out who took out Pooch and form the leftovers, which wasn't exactly for Pooch, but his motivation was like I'm going to avenge Pooch. So it's really cool just seeing how like the boots kind of inform the future gameplay rather than okay they're out, let's keep going with our alliance. Like a lot of the game has shifted after every boot because every boot impacts the rest of the game,
Right.
and it has been so
Well,
back and forth. But I love this
and if,
Pooch week because it really kind of got the game back to where it should be, which
right.
is like let's play
And
a game and not make it personal. And then of course the next week it becomes
what's,
personal again, which we'll get to. But yeah,
well, and the good thing about, again, who we've got on the season is you can see that the people who know the game really well are not the people who are out front. Like Turner does not
mm-hmm.
know the game well as Michael does, or even
Mm-hmm.
as well as Nicole did, because Nicole clearly knew the game, or Brittany. The people who really know the game, or who clearly know the game from watching, from being a fan, from being invested, those who know the game are very much like, I'm going to do what needs to be done when it needs to happen. I mean, we can talk about Michael for a second, the veto king of the season so far.
3 vetoes. And
I say,
now,
I
spoiler
say so
alert, an
far, but
HOH. So yeah, that's amazing.
so but you're on Recipe for Reality. You know what you're getting. And it's been, we'll find out tomorrow. It's you can see the people who know the game really well have the sense to say, I know when it's necessary. I know, week one this is week one. How do you not win the veto week one? Same thing with week two. Week two, we got to kind of make a control move. We got to figure out, I was on the block last week. I'm not on the block, but now you better believe I'm going to take the veto if I have the opportunity. He solidifies himself enough. He was in post pack. He's in the leftovers. He has everything he needs to
Yeah.
be at the top of his game, but he's never at the forefront. This week is going to be interesting because we know kind of, and nominations are out, Michael's made the biggest or the best move, one of the better moves for his game. He's got Joseph, Monty, and Terrence up on the block. If any of the three of them win that veto, he's already going to be able to do what he wants, which to my knowledge right now is still kind of up in the air. It seems
Yeah.
as if it's obviously going to be Daniel, but there's also the opportunity to take out a showmance, which we can talk about in a little bit as well. Michael is the perfect example of, in my mind, why having people like Turner, even though he was not our pick during that first preseason, we thought he was going to be an issue. Having people like Turner turns out to be a good thing, because those who don't know the game usually end up making the best alliances. I mean, look at Beast Mode Cowboy. creating
Yeah.
the detonators happens to be one of the best moves for the winner of that season and then the eventual winner of the All-Star season. And Beast Mode knew nothing about the game. He just knew that he wanted an all-guys alliance, so like, hell, let's
Right.
try this. Turner knows nothing. He creates an alliance, and the people who are smart enough go, yeah, all right, I can get behind this.
Yeah, and
Especially
I
Taylor.
don't necessarily know if like Turner created the leftovers, and we'll kind of talk about that in a little bit. But it was his HOH, like that's kind of where the power shifts. So let's talk about that week. Let's talk about the next week because, like I said, I was liking how week 2 is much more Big Brother than week 1. Week 1 just felt a little dirty. The Paloma stuff, it was just kind of icky.
Yeah.
Week 2, we get a good blindside with Pooch, but we kind of saw it coming all week. Week 3 is where things really go up in the air because. You know, and this kind of goes back to your talk of inexperience. You have Turner, who's very inexperienced with the game, and Amira, who's also very inexperienced with the game. You kind of see their differences. Turner, coming off of losing his best friend Pooch, you know, wants to target Taylor because she's the common target. But then as the week goes on, is talked into targeting Amira. And it's great to see Amira have this confidence kick when in reality, she's one of the most inexperienced and she doesn't realize she's getting played. It was just such a poetic week. And
So
it started
good.
to get dirty with Daniel and Nicole literally targeting Taylor, which for anyone who didn't watch, which I don't know why you're watching this, you didn't, but let me recap.
You mean with the lace?
Nicole was very upset with
you missed my joke.
with the lace. Lace.
With the lace? With the lace?
Nicole in the diary room was just upset that she had to throw the veto because she didn't want to get chosen for the veto, but now that she was chosen, she knew she had to throw it. Otherwise, her and Taylor wouldn't be on the block. She wouldn't get her plan, whatever. She was crying about that. Everyone else didn't know why she was crying because she wouldn't tell anyone because obviously you're not going to tell them that you're going to throw the challenge. But then Taylor, not knowing, was like, oh, shoot, if it has something to do with her mom, like, oh my gosh, like, and then I believe the words were, if you have to like bow out, that's okay. I didn't get an indication from that meant quit the game altogether.
No.
I thought it meant like if you want to, because she was talking about herself. She was like, if you want to bow out, don't worry about me.
Well,
I was thinking she was talking specifically about the challenge. Like if you don't want to compete in this veto, don't worry about me. And then Nicole takes it as if you want to quit the game, go ahead, do it.
And
manipulation. And that's where I'm like, where did you get that? Like you should quit the game from that. Like it's not like she said if you want to quit this game, like. That just doesn't make sense.
This is where Big Brother as a social experiment really falls, or not falls, but like this is where it falls as a social experiment because the clear answer to that, the clear answer to a question like that, if you are not 100% sure, is going, well, what do you mean? Because all Nicole needed to do was say, well, what do you mean by that? And Taylor would have been like, well, if you need to bow out of this challenge, like I get it, like it won't be a problem for me. Or then we would have gotten the confirmation that's like, well, if you need to bow out of the game for your personal stuff, like, you know, X, Y, and Z, and then it would have made a lot more sense for their frustration and their upset. But
and then
this is where Nicole
said, like, that's where I feel disrespected or whatever in the moment. But the thing is, she bottles it up, takes it to Daniel, who she knows is going to fight her battles for her. I did not like that confrontation, but it stemmed into something much more awesome, which was the leftovers. And I love how this all happened in one episode. I love how it was like this really awful moment for Taylor. Then we see the veto comp. We see Taylor herself struggling on the puzzle, and Nicole's like, I didn't need to throw it anyway. Ha ha ha. Bye, Taylor. You see Michael win his third veto in a row, which is just crazy. Because at this point, he went from being the week 1 target to now just like a king in veto competitions. And then you see Jasmine with her big moment where she is afraid of heights and can't do the challenge. It was just such a packed episode that I was like, how are they going to wrap this up? And they leave us on a cliffhanger, but the cliffhanger is the leftovers, which I think has been the talk of the season so far. And I think this is the moment. I texted you and our other friends during this. I was like, this is the most excited I've been since Dan's funeral. Like literally watching this in the moment and seeing them all come together, I was ecstatic because it was great to see people have Taylor's back, but it was also just great to see a shift because at the start of this week, they were almost kind of going with the cookout strategy of everyone pick a buddy with post-pack when they were picking the partners. Because everyone in post-pack was picking someone outside of post-pack. And that's why Michael picks Brittany, because Brittany's like, why would he pick me? It's because Michael wasn't in an alliance with Brittany. But then at the end of the week,
even though they had
totally
paired up together, even though they,
and
the thing is, they had paired up together. That was what was crazy. Is that
Michael picked Brittany because she wasn't in post pack and he was. So they all picked people based on who was in post pack or not. By the end of the week, though,
I mean they were. I meant that Michael was picking Brittany. He was like, we were good early on in the game. Brittany said the same thing. She was like, I really hope Michael doesn't pick me because it's going to be obvious. Michael and Brittany are so good at I know that this is like I was a little vocal about Brittany at the beginning of the year. I still think that I still think Rachel would have picked her if I hadn't said anything. But it would have been a good move because she's doing a great job. But Michael, man, Michael is going to be the MVP of this season, and I think we all kind of already know that. I mean, we know now he's definitely getting to jury, which if you are a super fan and you can get yourself to jury, that's half the battle, right? I would not be shocked at this moment if we see a Michael and Taylor final two with both sides, say, having an unbelievable, as of week 5, an unbelievable case for themselves. This is, again, the turnaround from week 1 to week 5 is so unbelievably massive. I mean, if we continue, right, we continue on with week 3, this Nicole, Daniel, and Taylor blow up occurs. Everyone, the leftovers form. Daniel and Nicole are sitting here very, like, we've got this in the bag. We're going to get her out of this house. We cannot wait.
Goes up, of all people. And I think that was so smart because they're going for, like I said earlier, the people that are shoo-ins to make jury, because Amira was protected at all costs. No one was looking at her, but then that's when you strike on those people. That's when you take them out. And I thought that was brilliant.
You get Nicole's moment with Terrence where she's literally like giving him her goodbye. I'm so sorry about what's about to happen to you. I love you. I loved you in this game. And Terrence the whole time is sitting there like, you have no idea what's about to happen to you. You have the blind side of week 3. I mean, again, it felt so good. We all knew it was happening. We knew it was coming, but they did not. Nobody knew. So then you get to the vote. It's that, what was it? 9-2, whatever it might have been. I can't remember off the top of my head.
It was a little closer than that because Indy. So Amira got the votes of Indy.
Oh no, sorry. This week
Nicole,
was 9-1.
This week was a 1, 9-1 vote. Yep.
I was thinking 9-1. The week before was a lot closer. With the Amira Terrence, like, oh my God, how the did this happen? And then just chaos, pure chaos.
It's amazing. Oh. It was amazing. Yeah, and the crazy thing is that after all that, like, Amira and Terrence go on the block together, and immediately Amira, in her interview with Julie, said, I knew something was up because I'm a way bigger threat than Terrence. But she still didn't pack all her bags. She still didn't think she was going home. Next week, Nicole thinks she's safe as well. Like, why would anyone think they're safe if their closest ally went home? That's what I don't get. And why Nicole was so safe, I don't understand, because it was all there written in the stars there. Like, there's a reason why Amira went home and not Taylor. And Turner brilliantly said it was because he felt like she was being bullied, because then it makes it seem like there's no alliances. He just felt bad for her, and then it's easy for him to kind of maneuver around it. And I gotta be honest, Turner took the biggest 180 of anyone. Turner and Kyle for me.
Yeah, he really did.
Kyle's now back on the.
Well, Kyle's doing this weird thing. So
we'll
Kyle, if we can talk about,
can we just?
I was going to say we'll talk about Kyle on his own.
I think Turner is really playing a great game. I think at first we were all kind of judging him based on stuff we heard before the season, and that was fair to hear that. And if it's true, shame on him for that. But again, people grow, and inside this house, he is playing one of the more respectable and I don't want to say liberal, but like, he's being open to all types of people. He seems like someone who's defending
tunnel vision. He doesn't have tunnel vision.
Yeah,
he's not very tunnel vision centered.
And that's surprising to see from a guy that we thought going into this was super, problematic. But I think it just goes to show that you don't really know who these people are until you see them in their rawest form, which is in Big Brother on the live feeds. And in his rawest form, he has been almost like the James Hewling. He's pulling the pranks on Jasmine right now with the muffin shit. Like, that is hilarious. And
my
he's
God,
becoming kind of like the class clown, but also like had a good move. He got out of Mira, and while he necessarily didn't think of that move, that was more Monty and Joseph and Kyle to an extent. I think that he is the one who can still take the credit because it was HOH, and I think he's the one who is still the least threatening to everyone else, because everyone else now is looking at if they're looking at the leftovers, the other side of the house, they're looking at Kyle and maybe Monty as like the biggest threats. I think Turner and Joseph are kind of laying under laying low.
They will never be
as well. I think Michael, only because he is so good at comps, is going to always kind of be a target, but not the biggest target. And then Taylor, for obvious reasons, just because she has always been a target. But I think Turner and Joseph, of all the leftovers, I think they have the best chance of making it far, because all it takes is for Alyssa or Indy or something to win an HOH, and Michael or Taylor could go home. But I think the other two, I think Joseph and Turner are probably most likely to make it far with either a Michael or a Taylor or maybe a Brittany, like maybe that 5. Because I really do think Turner and Joseph are playing so well under the radar, but still present enough. Because all these people are saying like, oh, Joseph, he's not doing anything. But it's because they're not in
No.
the alliance and they don't know he's doing stuff. And honestly, I give him the credit for the leftovers because he seemed to have the most say in forming that group.
And Joseph, again, a recruit who just, or not a recruit, sorry,
An alternate,
an alternate who came in and really like 180 the game in a way that, like, again, it's not like we weren't excited to see him, but whenever you get an alternate, and again, the difference between him and the original player, who of course his name is escaping me right now, Marvin,
who is now going to be on America's Got Talent, so everyone vote for him.
So go watch Marvin there, and apparently maybe on the Circle, like he's very like he's kind of all over the place. But the jarring difference between Marvin and Joseph, Marvin who looks like this very like inviting guy, like he's going to be your best friend, to Joseph who like lawyer, good looking, almost quiet, like Andrew Garfield, quiet, like the difference between them was so big. But you get to see Joseph. I mean, Joseph and Monty as a pairing is dynamite. They're good at the game together. They're very. I mean, they're almost so out in the open that you don't notice them. Obviously, Michael's got them on the block this week, but I think that's more a strategic move for Michael than for them to kind of like put them in the spotlight. That's so Michael knows I've got 3 pretty good guys playing for the Veto, along with me and Brittany, who are going to be able to more than help me, take care of what I want to get done this week. But Joseph and Monty as a pairing is so smart. And then to have Turner kind of with them on the back burner, you've got, again, I got to get, no, sorry. I'm talking Turner, but yes, Terrence on the back burner. Yeah. Right. But like, I got to give CBS a lot of credit, and I got to give the casting directors a ton of credit too. The way that they have paired up this season with the people who are in the house is so unbelievable. Everyone is so diverse. Last year we got the diversity that we wanted in BB23. We got to have the cookout. We got to have all of these amazing things. This year it's not only diverse, racially, sexuality wise, everything of that spectrum, but it's also so diverse with the types of people that they are, and to have 2 people like, right, to have 2 people like Kyle and Michael who honestly look like just, like reskins of each other if you're playing a video game, but to have them be so unbelievably different, but yet they can come together and work together. Now, whatever's going on with Kyle this week, the same thing, I look at Alyssa and I see like, oh, look, it's just Angela from BB20 because they look so similar, but they play such different game styles, and she's we haven't even talked about Indy yet. What is she still doing there?
She's floating. She's the Victoria. If this is going to be a Big Brother 16 scenario where like a big alliance goes to the end and they have one other person, it's going to be either Jasmine or Indy. But I think Jasmine having that HOH makes her a more high profile player. Yeah,
Peridium put it well. Floaters make moves in the game just like while they float along with people. Indy is a coaster. She there's nothing. She strapped in for the ride and said, "All right, do whatever you want.
I think Terrence and Indy are the two coasters. Whereas I think even Alyssa, who I'm not a fan of her and her game, just because of some of the things she's done with Kyle, which we'll talk about. But like some of the things with Alyssa,
we're almost there.
I think she's more of a floater though, because I think Alyssa's still trying to make moves. Daniel is a floater. Not even a floater. Daniel's just kind of on his own island, but he is still like trying to play the game.
I was gonna say, is Daniel even a floater, or is he just really bad at the game?
Like I don't even know if Alyssa's
talk about a terrible
week
1 HOH.
End, but yeah, terrible week 1 HOH. Obviously, given the circumstances, like if his HOH goes the way he planned and Taylor goes home, it's not. But I mean, like he was just unfortunate with the Paloma situation. But again, Cody Nixon, poor guy. When someone left, he had to renominate someone. They had the pendant of production, had to nominate another person. He nominated like 6 people in 1 week. Like, but Daniel's lucky he only had to nominate 3 in Michael, Taylor, and Terrence.
And didn't even have to suffer through like having someone actually go out on his HOH. He got to have Paloma. Unfortunately, Paloma leaves, but like, that's not his fault. He just nominated people, and that's what happened. So like, so let's even talk about Daniel. So we get to week 4, and we get probably again some of just the absolute worst game playing.
Daniel or Pooch, who has had the bigger, dumber move? Because honestly, in my
Oh,
opinion,
Daniel.
Pooch, I was gonna say, because Pooch going on the block, there's a chance he can survive if his plan works. Like, because it is a good plan. Like, if you think there's a house target, you go up as a pawn. Daniel, after Kyle was struggling to use the veto, and we'll talk about Kyle in a sec. Kyle decides, okay, fine, I won't use the veto. I'll send my showmance home for the alliance. But then Daniel's like, no, I'm going to use it because I want Taylor gone so bad. It's this obsession with Taylor that got to an extent, maybe got Paloma out, we don't know, got Pooch out, got Amira out to an extent, and has now gotten
definitely
Nicole
got Amira out.
But the thing is, Nicole didn't do that to herself. She did it to herself by the way she acted to everything, but like she wasn't going home.
No, Daniel did it.
Michael had a great strategy. Michael said, hey, if we keep Alyssa and Indy here, if they get split up, one of them joins us, Brittany and I, then every pair is covered. And I just want to talk about this briefly because I love the idea of the Festy Besties. They tried the pair thing in Big Brother 13,
so good.
Except when someone went home, the other person had immunity till jury. And I think that's so
till
bad.
Jury, which was just so useless.
You have Danielle Donato losing her dad and then having to sit there with immunity for 5 weeks and do nothing. And I think that's why this
and not
is so
even
cool
do nothing. Not even do nothing. Danielle Donato, I think. But I think Danielle Donato loses BB13 because of the duo, because she sits for 5 weeks, because she has nothing to do except wait.
Comps. Yeah, she doesn't have the ability to play in comps. She doesn't have the ability to campaign. It's really tough. Here, though, the person who is safe gets to rejoin a pair and is still vulnerable. And that's why I like it, because imagine if it had gone the Big Brother 13 way. Terrence sticks around after Amir goes and just sits around. That would be awful because Terrence is A, not a big player as is, but B, he's outside the alliance, so he's not an option anymore. But now, because he's joining Monty and Joseph, if you put the 3 of them on the block, you can get rid of Terrence and the other 2 in your alliance are safe. I think this is a great way to kind of keep the game still moving and changing, but allow the alliance to really play to the strength of the twist and really use the twist to their advantage. I love this twist. I think it creates some cool dynamics, especially with what happened with Kyle last week, of the whole idea of, if I use this veto, I'm protecting my showmance, but I'm going back on my alliance and I'm screwing over Michael and Brittany. But if I don't use the veto, then I lose my showmance. But then Daniel used the veto anyway, so it didn't matter. And Kyle looks fine to his alliance because Kyle can say, I wasn't going to use it. It was Daniel, which I think is also awesome for Kyle, but he got real lucky because I think Kyle, we'll talk about it in a sec, is in between a rock and a hard place right now. But I think Daniel's move was so dumb,
Kyle,
and I can't believe it.
Well, we'll talk about it. I have so many thoughts and feelings on this Kyle thing. It's killing me.
Let's talk about Kyle now, unless you have more thoughts on the Daniel thing or the Festy Bestie twist. I mean, I was just going
to say, we move into week 4 again. Monty's in a sweet spot. Monty's got the obvious thing to do. He can get rid of Nicole. He can do it through a back door because he knows she's at least a little good in competition, so he doesn't want to give her the opportunity to play. She's obvious, but yet he has the opportunity to kind of sit with his alliance and be like, listen, guys, like, I don't know if this is the best move. Maybe we should try X, Y, or Z. So they know that he's an actually, like, useful player, not just, I'm going to go with what you guys want, because I think that that's something that really, screwed over the cookout. That's something that really screwed over, or something that made such a boring season out of the committee. Things we don't want to think about ever again. It just such boring gameplay that we get to see Monty kind of be the opposite. And it was it's so refreshing. People get nervous about including myself. You get nervous about a big alliance. If you're playing the game, it's different. Obviously the move is to be a part of the big alliance. The problem once you're part of the big alliance is, where do you stand on the big alliance? Do you fall towards the bottom, you're in the middle, or are you at the top of it? And like, how do you navigate that? But as a viewer, you don't want to see a big alliance, because then every year just feels kind of like, at a certain point last summer, we kind of got like, all right, who's the cookout taking out this week? We were just waiting because they were so good at what they were doing that it just was like, all right, we're waiting until 6 because then the game actually starts and then it's too late.
Yeah, which is why I'm almost kind of glad that Kyle's waning a little bit on this alliance, because it kind of makes things a little interesting.
Now we can talk.
About him. But one last thing right before that, and I actually just lost my train of thought, so I don't even remember what I was going to say. But yes, I agree with everything you said. Let's get into Kyle, because Kyle was in a great position with this leftovers thing. course, gets suckered into a romance. And I'll admit, I did not like the way Alyssa kind of forced herself on Kyle, especially after Kyle was so open about past relationships and traumas and stuff like that, and not wanting to be in a showmance. Alyssa, if it was the roles were reversed and a guy was doing it to a woman, I think people would have a
100%.
much bigger problem with it. And I had a big problem with the way she was going about it. And Indy being like, just grab him and kiss him and touch him and all this stuff. Like, I don't like that. But Kyle also did kiss her back finally, and I think that's dangerous. And we've seen showmances succeed. We've definitely seen showmances succeed. Look at Big Brother All Stars, Will and Boogie taking Erica and Janelle. That's your final four. But like, I don't know, and Holly and Mickey. I don't know though if this is the right move, especially with the leftovers, because now if Kyle is in power next week and this duo thing is still a thing, which I don't know if it will be now the jury starting next week, but if it is still a thing, which it'd be interesting to see if they keep it a thing. What is Kyle going to do? Because the next move is to go after Indy and Alyssa. Like, is he going to say, I want to get Jasmine out instead? Am I going to get Terrence out? Because if Terrence goes out this week, then he can't do that. Like, I just don't know if he's putting himself in a rough place. And he said on the feeds recently that he's worried. And this is where a lot of people have also, kind of come out to get Kyle a little bit, is that he's worried that another cookout is forming with Monty, Joseph, Taylor. But I'm like, you literally just sent out two people of color back to back, to Amira
Right.
and Nicole. So like, I don't think another cookout is forming, but for him to just be thinking that now when you're only 2 weeks in the alliance, like, and you're well positioned and you have a showman. So if Alyssa wins HOH, you're safe. Like, he's so well positioned. I think just running his mouth a little bit and being a little paranoid is going to get him in trouble. And I think there's a reason why he's ranked lowest on Jokers out of the leftovers, is because he is having this like second thought about the leftovers, and saying it to Michael of all people is also not the best move. What are your thoughts on Kyle, Zach? Because you have a lot of them.
So, yeah. So, Kyle as a player, I think, up until really this week, has been doing nearly flawlessly.
Amazing. Yes,
I
think him and Michael have been. I mean, even Michael was a target week one, so I'll say Kyle was playing probably the most seamless, blood-free game of anyone.
So what makes me frustrated is this. So I mean, again, I don't know what. It's been so long since we've like talked on Recipe for Reality that like we've not really discussed things like the Twitter, kind of bias of things. You know me, I'm a very big follower of things on social media, all Big Brother wise. So I of course follow Spoiler Girl, and I of course follow Spoiler King. And something that came up very recently was that and again, this is all alleged, so I can't speak to whether or not this is true. Obviously, this is just like taking things with a grain of salt. It seems as if in the DR, because they had the Spoiler Girl and Spoiler King boast that they have kind of like men, women on the inside. Kyle for weeks was not about the Alyssa thing. He was very like, I am not here for that. I want to win. Yeah. I want to win the game. And then very suddenly, it all switched. And so while it was switching, I'm like I'm on my game. I'm like, oh, I gotta follow this. Through Spoiler Girl and Spoiler King, it is alleged, it has been said that in the DR they were pushing. They were like, Kyle, she's hot. Kyle, and just kept going.
Yeah, and
so
what frustrates
me, right?
Know how much of that is actually true or not in terms of like,
of course,
that's someone telling us what they know, but we don't know if what they know is truth or lie. I don't know 100% if that's
which is why I say it's alleged, but the timeline does, and it was occurring. These things were occurring like in real time while it was happening on the feed. So again, I don't know. It's upsetting to see such a good player fall because again, you look at people like Tyler Crispin, who again was very similar, was like, I don't want to showmance. And then when Angela and him happened, he said like, I can't deny it, but he never stopped playing the game. And neither did she really. They got into their showmance, and then the game still was like head on. You have, unfortunately, showmances like Cody and Jessica, where because of their position in the house, they only really had each other. So there was nothing to really go off of when it came to that.
Again, we just talked about it. Cody's first week was just so disastrous that no one was going to ever recover from that. No.
And she knew the game so well, and he knew the game well enough, and was such a strong player that, like, truthfully told, they probably could have run that game easy. BB19 is very different if Paul doesn't walk.
If Paul doesn't come in.
If Paul doesn't walk in week one, it's a different game. But with Kyle, it's such a shame to see such a good player go from amazing to disappointing. What I also will say is, even just like if you go look right now, it is 2:03 on Saturday, August 6th. If you go to Twitter and you look, it just disappeared on my what's happening. But if I go to my explore, the trend KK Kyle is on Twitter. And what bugs me about that, because there's been a lot of issues with Kyle right now, again, like you said, with him being worried about another cookout, with him being worried about, Joseph and Monty and Taylor. And listen, I unfortunately, I have to say, like, this is what we spoke about. We were worried happening with players in the modern Big Brother world. Now that you've seen a cookout, we can never have another cookout. The cookout was a once in a lifetime scenario. That being said, we know a little bit about Kyle's background. We know a little bit about who he is outside the house. Mm-hmm. This wasn't necessarily an inevitable. It just unfortunately makes a little sense. And that's what I disagree entirely with this KK Kai. He's not said anything
I think
to
that's
the
a little bit of a
effect
stretch.
He's not said anything to the effect of being outwardly and outright racist or discriminatory. And in the realm of the game, I can't necessarily say as a player, I wouldn't myself be worried about the prospect of another cookout. It just wouldn't necessarily be the cookout. It's just an alliance of 6 who is so strong and so tight. How do we not get worried about them? But to go so far as to call him KKK Kyle is not focusing on, like, maybe the bad move is just that he's with Alyssa. Maybe the bad move is that he's got someone on his ear who's not great at the game, who is now ruining his game. I think that the cookout comments are a little bit unprompted, and maybe from a place of bias that, not maybe, definitely from a place of bias that, like, we as white individuals in this day and age maybe need to take a step back and look and be like, well, there's a lot of bias in that's rewritten into, like, our systems based on just the world at large. But to say that Kyle has now ruined himself as a person, especially in the game, this is why I'm not a big fan of Big Brother Twitter, is because of the live feeds. You say one thing and you go from fan favorite to most hated. And I just, I worry about, like, the family members. Like, someone was like, his mama about to lose her shit, and it's like, but that's, like, literally his mom.
I
that's
think it's
literally
very
his mom.
It's very tough. We only see we see everything, and I think that's a bad excuse that Paloma and Pooch have said. Like, you don't see everything on the feeds, and, like, we don't see
Stupid.
everything.
You do,
because of the challenges and the meetings they go down. Like, those things we don't see, but we see everything in terms of character and all that stuff. So, like, we see what he's saying, and it is tough because he was in such a good position. My thought is just that he's paranoid. And I hope, honestly, if Daniel hadn't made that move and Kyle had been loyal to the alliance and kept Alyssa and Indy on the block and let Alyssa go, I think it would have been a totally different case scenario this week. Because I really do think Alyssa in the game, I'm not saying Alyssa is responsible for Kyle's, like, the way he sees race and stuff, but I think Alyssa is definitely responsible for the fact that he is paranoid in general, and I think it's because he was in a rock and a hard place last week, and I don't know what he does going forward. This Festy Bestie twist, I think it's tough because Kyle, if he's worried about another cookout, because he mentioned India along these people too, first Brazilian woman to play Big Brother, then you know what? She's not in the alliance. You're worried about her maybe being in another alliance with your alliance members. Then why don't you target Indy? The problem is Indy's Festy Betty with Alyssa. So it's like you can't really target, and they're not going to put them on the block because of Taylor. Because Michael has said this week, I am not putting Indy, Alyssa, and Taylor on the block. Taylor is not going up again. So, like, I think that's where the Festy Bestie twist is interesting and awesome for the game, but why it's unfortunate for people like Kyle, because Kyle probably is like, I want Indy out or something, and he can't get that because it risks Alyssa going home now. I just think Alyssa being in the game is going to be detrimental to Kyle. I even think Alyssa going home will be detrimental for Kyle because she'll be on the jury now. And that's going to be tough as well, because after this week we get jury, and Alyssa's not going home this week because that trio is not going home. I think this week in terms of targets, I don't know necessarily what Michael's head's at. I haven't watched a bunch of feeds since because I wanted to kind of go into this open-minded from the last eviction and not kind of read forward. But I know who won.
I haven't.
I know who won the HOH. I know who the nominations are, but I know that if the plan is to keep the 3 guys on the block and get out Terrence, that's an easy boot. But I have a feeling it's to use as a backdoor option for Daniel because they didn't want Daniel to play in the veto. But here's the thing: if the
if
veto,
Daniel
if
goes
the
up,
3
Kyle
win,
goes up.
and that's the thing. I don't think the leftovers would do that to Kyle, but I think the thing is Kyle would do that to the leftovers, and I think that's where they have to start thinking, like, is this the right move?
And
maybe,
I was going to
just
say,
maybe this is the opportunity to take Kyle out because that's also the jury thing with Alyssa. But then again, I just think it's too early, and I think they'd be ruining relationships, definitely with Alyssa, which I think is someone you want to just make sure you have.
And Indy. I mean, it's just
because
unfortunate.
I think, honestly, at this point, I don't think Daniel is a threat in the game. I think, honestly, you should
No.
string him along as long as you can. But I just don't know who the target would be otherwise. I mean, honestly, you know who I would go after? I would put Turner and Jasmine up there and try to get Jasmine out because she at least has had some influence in the game.
And I mean, again, that was my sentiment exactly. Is I think that this is, you can't put. It'll be a hard move to try and convince them to put Turner and Jasmine up because what has Turner or Jasmine not done for the leftovers / just Michael in the game? She was never trying to get him out. She was never targeting Brittany. So it's not. There's no reason to, and it just kind of looks mindless. But again, you put Daniel and Kyle up. I mean, Daniel really has nothing going for him. He has nothing in the game. He's made a bunch of enemies. His week 1 HOH is useless. He made the worst move and got his own alliance member, his own ally sent home last week. He's got nothing to go off of, whereas Kyle is very well liked by everybody, has a showman, so you now know that not only does he have the alliance, he has someone else kind of to rely on and to help him out. So as the leftovers, maybe it's worth it. Maybe it is worth it to say, like, maybe it is time to get rid of Kyle this week. But I agree.
I think it's too soon.
You take out Kyle now, you lose Alyssa, you lose Indy. Jasmine starts looking at it a little funky and goes like, why'd you get rid of Kyle? That was like, Daniel's the obvious choice. And then you start to think like,
with those 3 that you mentioned, though, I think there's a way to sell it to where, like, I was worried about a showmance. If you just say that, then Alyssa, Indy, and Jasmine are upset, but they're like, all right, whatever. I'm worried about the leftovers because if Michael goes after them, sure, he'd probably have the leftovers consent, but I just don't think the leftovers, especially Brittany, who's so about
it's too early to turn on each other.
Think she would
it's too early.
I think she would too. I don't think she would let him. I think this week we're either going to get an easy Terrence boot, or we'll see like maybe Daniel go home. I mean, Daniel's probably the likely boot, or an easy Terrence boot. And either way, I think both of them are easy people that you would want in jury. Honestly, the best move would be to try to get Alyssa out, but I know he doesn't want to put Taylor up, and it sucks because I think Alyssa going home would get Kyle back on your side and would allow you to kind of roll through the game without having that guaranteed Kyle jury vote. As for winner picks, because we kind of covered just all the big moments. As for winner picks, what are we thinking now? I'm going to stick with Taylor only because I picked her and I want to keep following through. Because if your winner pick is doing well, you want to kind of see it through the end. That's how I felt about Ricard on Survivor 41. Didn't really work out for me, but I was like, hey, I want to roll with this. I forget who I picked for 42. Who did I pick for 42?
I don't remember who you picked for 42.
It wasn't High. It was Tori, and that was never going to happen at this point in the game. But at this point in the game, I think Taylor is well positioned. I think also because her alliance doesn't want to see her go on the block again because I think that's one of the best things about being an early target and surviving is that they don't want to do that to you again.
No one wants to put you up on the block again.
And for Michael and Taylor to be the 2 targets of week 1 and essentially be running the house now, I love that. I think the only thing is going to be if the leftovers does make it to 7, the 4 guys in the pound, if they stick together, Brittany, Michael, and Taylor are on the outs. The only thing is, all it takes for Brittany, Michael, and Taylor to pull over a Turner or Joseph, and anything's possible. I think Monty and Kyle, if we get to 7 and those numbers turn out the way they turn out, and the pound goes after the other 3, and the pound is our final 4, I think it's pretty much guaranteed either Monty or Kyle will win. The only thing is, I'd be interested to see though if any of them flip over to join Michael, Brittany, and Taylor. I think it's definitely in my mind Michael or Taylor makes the most sense. I'm gonna go Taylor only because Michael has been winning so much. I can't fathom him making it all the way without at least being targeted once or twice. But again, he can win, and I'm predicting a Janelle trajectory for him where like he finishes 3rd. But I don't know. I really don't know. I'd love to see any combination of Michael, Taylor, Turner, and Joseph as like our final two.
Yeah.
So, but I'm gonna stick with Taylor as my winner pick. But Zach, since your winner pick is gone, I would love for you to tell me who your winner pick is at this phase of the game. Assuming we'll be podcasting a lot more now that like we're both from our
we'll
shows,
be able to.
I definitely want to podcast a little bit more because I do think it's going to be fun talking about this week to week. But like
I'll podcast
at this phase in the game. What are you thinking?
I'll podcast from Vegas in 2 weeks if we really need to, because it'll probably be an exciting week. And maybe we're going to Vegas. If any Big Brother alum are in Vegas, hit me up.
Why? We'll talk later. I was like, why are you going to Vegas?
Oh no, we're going on vacation.
Nice, that's awesome.
That's really what it is. My winner pick, you know what? I think, honestly, the 4 that you said, I don't think Turner is a winner of BB24. Oh my God, excuse me. Not because I don't think he's good at the game. I just don't know how much follow through he's going to be able to have once he gets to jury. He's laid a lot lower. You made a great comparison to James earlier, and I think that's kind of his. He's got the James Ewing path.
He could get third place.
James made a great. Well, really, like James made a great move in BB17, and it got him far enough in the game to get to jury, and then in BB9 or in BB18, he was able to kind of lay low enough and hunker down with one person and Paul and Nicole and get them to bring him far enough that he ends up with third place, maybe wrongfully so, and not of his own fault. He easily could have been a second place for either of them that season. But I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing when it comes to the winner pick, I'd love to have picked Joseph, but I just don't know if Joseph is going to be able. If Joseph and Taylor team up like we keep kind of seeing, we see the little hints of, I think they could be a great duo and could go all the way. But I'm going to go with my gut and go with my wife's gut, because she's not always right about these things, but she's pretty right. And I do think that Michael is probably the most likely winner right now.
I'll tell you right now, we have
like
a
you
viewer,
said,
and she, my sister does agree. she has Michael as
it's one of those things. I mean, Michael, like you said, Michael proves time and time again he can win. It's one thing to be strategic. It's one thing to have good ideas, but it's another thing to be able to follow through. And the fact that he knows right now, if he can take out Daniel and kind of finish off the leftovers plan of like, we got rid of Amira, then we got rid of Nicole, and if I can kind of lock in and finish off Daniel, then he'll be the savior. Mm-hmm. Because he's one of the reasons that they were able to get Amira up in the first place. He's one of the reasons that they were able to talk each other into like, hey, like Monty, like we got to go after Nicole this week. And now in week 5, here he is with, he's got all the power. And this just in, live for you about an hour ago, the veto players for this week will be Michael Brittany, obviously, Joseph, Monty, and Terrence, obviously, and Jasmine and Turner.
Ooh,
so we do not have playing. Kyle and Daniel playing. If Jasmine and Turner, or if Jasmine and Turner win the veto,
and who knows if she's
all they have. Well, and right, all they have to do is Michael just has to go up to Turner and go, you know what you got to do? You know what you got to do? Takes off Monty, Terrence, and Joseph. Kyle and Daniel go up, and Michael then gets the opportunity. I will say, Michael has the opportunity this week to make or break his game. If he gets rid of Daniel, then that's it.
I think
it's just smooth sailing from him from now
until. If he gets rid of Kyle, it's too early, and
if he gets rid of Kyle, then he might be making I think in his mind, if he goes for the Kyle, he's trying to do the Janelle with Boogie or the Janelle with Will in All Stars a little too early. It's a little too early for that.
If he puts them on the block and the leftovers decide to get Kyle out, that's a different story. But I think
if the leftovers are like, we should get rid of Kyle, and he's like, you guys can't vote this week, but that's a good idea.
Especially because you want to get to the jury. You want to have all the leftovers in the jury if you can. And to waste that right now would not make sense. Honestly, we could end up just seeing Terrence go if it just ends up being, a very clear cut, like I don't want to get any blood on my hands, because Terrence is an easy boot. He's wanted to leave the game a few times. We haven't talked about him because I think he's a non-factor. Him and India are the two, I think, non-factors on the season. But again, like I kind of want that. If I'm in that position, I'd want to take that to the jury and just like have those extra numbers and try to schmooze them a little bit and get out a bigger target. And I just don't know. Daniel's a big big enough target now because he's on his own. Like,
Right.
but again, I just think the options are limited when you're in such a dominant alliance. But nonetheless, it's still
Right.
exciting. So your winner pick Michael, mine's Taylor. Let's hope they're the final two because I'd be fine with either of them winning. I think whichever one doesn't win is our fan favorite, 100%.
Right.
I think if neither
100%.
of them win, if neither of them win, I think because of the casuals, I think it'll be Michael. But if Michael wins the whole game,
think it might
I think
be
Taylor's AFC. Yeah, because I do think Big Brother Twitter is very much in Taylor's camp, but I think there are still people on Big Brother like Facebook and stuff like that, just the casuals who aren't necessarily as big of a Taylor fan because week one didn't portray her as well as she actually is. But I think now they're getting a bigger sense of that. And we've seen Big Brother Twitter come through with Cody a few years ago in Big Brother 19 over like the conventional Kevin or Jason picks. And that was all just campaigning from Jessica. So let's transition. Oh, last thing I wanted to say, the comps this year, awesome. I love the idea of the Festy Besties.
So good.
Comp.
So much fun.
I love the idea of playing these comps in duos, but also just the single comps. Like I love the one with the jousting where Michael was getting the hooking the rings and stuff like that. Like I just think the comps this year, they're really trying to make them different. And they're also playing into the whole idea of let's do a physical comp so then you can get to the pie eating more mental comp, or like let's make a game on luck where you're collecting letters to then get to the sliding of the glasses. Like it's like you have a physical and a mental component rather than one or the other. I think it's much more well-rounded that way, and it allows for people like Jasmine to still have a chance of winning despite her injury, and people like Terrence to win. Honestly, I think Terrence is worse at challenges than Jasmine, and that's saying something.
Terrence isn't that good. Okay, well, and Terrence, unfortunately,
he's a likable guy, likable guy. Like he's someone you can bring
great.
to third place too.
Oh, well, and that's, again, it's great to see Terrence there. It's frustrating as someone who wants to play to see Terrence there, but also, like, to watch him kind of navigate amongst the younger crowd. And he's not even, I'd say the younger crowd. He's not that old. I mean, Terrence, he's in his 50s. But, it's one of those, he's the oldest there. But the way that Terrence and Monty, the way that Monty and Joseph really like took him in, it was smart. You like to see someone play who. I mean, again, I was looking the other day at my my preseason ranking. I mean, Terrence was pre-jury for me. Who else was pre-jury for me? Taylor was pre-jury for me. I mean, it's one of those things. Like I look back at it now and I go like,
Kyle and Joseph and Turner. So yeah.
And I think Joseph was pre-jury for me too. It's one of you look at, and Turner. That was my 4, and there's a 5th that's missing. I just don't know who it is.
Probably Pooch.
And Paloma was
Pooch.
No, Pooch made jury for me. It's really upsetting.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know.
It might have been Turner,
but regardless, it's one of those things where the reason we love the game is because it's so hot and cold. There's never a 100% chance of it going. Preseason, we thought we had good reads, and half of our reads were wrong. And that's
I like to take credit. I like to take credit for Taylor and Michael. We both had Michael going.
We both had Michael, but Taylor is.
I thought. Honestly, after week 1, I was like, I think Amira could win, and I think that's the thing is she very well could have if she didn't go home that week. So like, I think
I was going to say she might have won.
It's just that they're playing well into our reads, and they're saying, well, these are going to be threats. Let's get them out. Like Michael was a target week 1 because he's very clearly good at the game. Amira was a target week 3 because she's very clearly good at the game. I'd love to see Amira on a return. I think she was one of the lesser problematic people. She did say some things, obviously, toward Taylor, but I think she is someone I'd love to see on a return because I think now she understands what the game entails now that she's kind of experienced it, and now she can, I think, run with it because I think she's a really savvy player. I think of this pre-jury, she's very much the best player to come out of it, pending this next boot. But I think Nicole was my final 2 pick with Taylor. So to see them on the block together, I was like, well, I'm losing one of my final 2. Nicole though was a little bit of a dud, but again, she played hard despite playing badly. And she
played hard. It just was, it just really wasn't good.
No.
So
now
shall we?
Yeah.
I was going to say, let's move on.
Let's talk about the challenge real quick, just because this is the one probably that, Bachelorette includes less strategy, but I talked about the challenge when you headed out on our last podcast. And this is one of those things where it really is mostly physical. Like, I think our winners are going to come down to the more physical players, like Tyson and Angela being the 2 most obvious at the moment. But I think there are some interesting elements of strategy. I don't really necessarily need to go through each week to week to week, but I really enjoyed seeing like the Tiffany downfall. As much as I love Tiffany, seeing her
Oh
downfall,
man.
and then to see
Oh
Alyssa taking
man.
out Xavier, I think she's gotten a lot of shit for it because her and Derek X have been saying we want to go against the Cookout because they betrayed us, and I understand a sentiment of, you know, that's racist. I get where those people are coming from, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I think Wendell Holland, who won Survivor Ghost Island, said on his podcast, he had Derek F on with Bryce Isaiah. He hosts a podcast, and he was saying you can still support the mission that the Cookout did while still feeling burned by the mission because
Because you were all in the game.
Alyssa was probably like, yeah, this is awesome that we're getting the first Black winner, but it came at her expense and it came at Derek X's expense. I think the way they are talking about it and the way it's edited sometimes comes across as a little petty. But honestly, in the game, it's the challenge. It's not Big Brother. You know, this is a whole new game. Xavier was your best friend, and he did cut you because of the mission. And I think there is a point where you have to kind of decide where in that gray area you lie. And I think Alyssa did the best she could of explaining her reasoning, because honestly, Xavier's a big threat too. So like, you can get him out, But I think it's interesting how the Big Brother people are going after one another. The Survivor people seem more unified than ever. And then the Love Island people and Amazing Race people are there. I think we're only down to 2 Amazing Racers now. There were 3. James left. James, honestly though, I was very proud of him and Kayla for winning that one challenge, because like, James, going into this, we were like, he's going to be weak, but he was pretty strong. And I think that goes to show, like, any challenge anyone can win if they just have the right mindset and motivation. And it's just been really fun to see these players from 4 different shows and to see what strengths are utilized where. Like the Survivors, I think, are the most impressive in terms of the physical stuff, but then the Big Brother people seem to be doing the most strategic stuff. But in the end, the Big Brother people doing so much strategic stuff might burn them, whereas I think the Love Islanders and Amazing Racers are almost kind of laying low. But the Love Islanders are so non-physical that I think the Amazing Racers are honestly the ones who are probably the best at like just kind of cruising through. That being said, there's only 2 of them, and one of them is Leo, who is a target and is kind of someone that not a lot of people love being partnered with. But I'm just talking specifically about Kayla, I guess, at this point. But what are your thoughts on the season and a little bit on the Alyssa move? Because the Alyssa move has been the biggest moment of the season so far. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm enjoying the show a lot more than I thought I would. I think it moves, just me personally, it moves a little too slow. The one episode a week with the one elimination, with nothing really, with a lot packed into kind of one episode. For me, it moves a little simultaneously, like a little slow while a little fast all at the same time. But I mean, every competition I enjoy. I haven't really watched one yet where I'm not enjoying myself, where I'm not consistently like shocked by how someone like Enzo does, or even like how David does. I've loved getting to watch and get to know people like getting to know Cache and Cinco and Shannon outside of Love Island has been really, really nice, because this is them actually showing their prowess, like in a competition versus just showing themselves in like, you know, bikinis and like short, tight bathing suits. And like, again, not that there's anything wrong with that. That's what the show's about. But to see them kind of like put their money where their mouth is in the realm of like CBS game shows is really, really awesome. And getting to know someone like Tyson, who I didn't start watching Survivor until this year, and now all I want to do is go back and watch his seasons.
I was going to say, what I love about this is that like Tyson is a one old school Survivor player there. Like everyone else is fairly new school, 25 and on, or 35 and on. Like Ben and Desi were season 35. Dominic was season 36. You have Sarah, who played a little older, but she also has been on like 34 and Winners of War and stuff like that. Like, but it's fun to see Tyson, who's been there since like season 18, you know, coming in and still being such a force. He's one of the oldest guys there, and he is playing so well. Because he's so physical. He's so good at everything. That challenge with the tires where they had to like get the tiles and run back and spell words. He was running out again. Everyone's like, "You're going out again?" He's like, "Yeah, I need to get more letters." And it's just like, this man could do it all. And my sister and I were talking, like, she thinks it's going to be Tyson and Angela. I think that's kind of like the obvious picks right now.
I think that's kind of what they want you to see.
There's some also pretty physical players in there as well. But like, you've gotten rid of an Xavier, you got rid of a Cinco. Like, I think Kyland has been doing very well. He's won 2 challenges, I believe, plus the elimination challenge with Ozza that he won. I think Kyland could do some damage. We haven't seen him win a challenge yet, but Danny seems very strong and physical. But like, I really think Tyson is a clear favorite for the men, and for the women,
Yeah.
I think it is Angela. But we have seen Alyssa win. We've seen Justine win. I think we just saw Sarah win an elimination. So like,
Yep.
there are also some women on the teetering, but I really do think Angela and Tyson have all
Yep.
the keys they need right now. If they partner up, especially in the finale, I think they could win it. For
Right.
Sure.
I will say before I even talk about the Alyssa thing, I love seeing Angela back on reality television. I thought Angela was so good in BB20. I obviously, because of my love of Tyler, I loved them as just like a pairing. But I think that like again, she comes on this show by herself and proves that she is a standalone competitor and such a great player, and honestly, so wonderful to watch. She's very strategic. She's great at the social aspect of what's going on. I'm never bored. I will say, like, even in how slow it is, with people like Angela and like Alyssa and, you know, with the Tiffany drama, the Xavier drama, I'm never bored when I'm watching things like that. When it comes to the Alyssa thing, if we're getting into the nitty gritty of it, I'm not going to be upset at them, her and Derek X, for playing how they needed to play in this game, because if we're going to be quite frank, they already lost once. So why are they going to lose again? And, you know, this is a different game. The mission's already been won, especially like, I know Xavier is Alyssa's best friend, but Xavier has $750,000 in his wallet. And how much money does Alyssa have? You know, it's one of those things where like, I understand. And I think that, who was it that said on the podcast, you can support the mission, but still be burned?
It was Wendell who won Ghost Island.
Wendell.
Survivor Ghost Island. Yeah.
I agree with that. You can support the mission and still feel burned, because the truth of the matter is, even on the way out, all Xavier might, and we might have been thinking we might have been singing a different tune. All Xavier would have had to do was go up to Alyssa and be like, "Friend, we've got an alliance of 6 going on. It is all Black members. You know,
that's what happened with Tiffany and Claire.
Really, it's one of those. You know, you look at it and you go, I think Alyssa might not have pulled this move if that's what had happened. But instead of that, he kept her in the dark. And I think the challenge, the thing I like about it, and the thing that makes me kind of enjoy it more than I even originally thought I was going to, is, you know, I just lost my train of thought. Hold on. It's coming back. There's no reason to not bring your burn and bias in. You know, it's a bunch of people from a bunch of different shows. You've got the opportunity. It's not like you're playing Big Brother again and you have to be super secretive. You're playing a game that is literally physical challenges built in such a way that you got to have the best time, avoid the worst time, and then hope that you make it through whatever challenge the elimination challenge is. And you have to play with someone different each week. You know, it's one of those things where you look at it. How do you not bring your bias? How do you not bring your previous burns in?
Right. And it's
especially when there are people there.
It's like when Xavier goes home, it's like, oh, you're like totally going against the cookout. You're racist. And he didn't say that. It was more Shan who was saying that in interviews, because she was eliminated with Xavier, and just people in general talking about it. But also, like, Xavier helped get out Tiffany a few weeks ago. Like, if we don't remember, when Tiffany goes into the elimination, he looks and winks like at Alyssa and other people. Like Xavier was partially responsible for Tiffany going up. So I think, I just think in general, the Big Brothers going after one another is not going to bode too well for their end game. I think the good thing about Angela is Angela won that first challenge with Tyson, so she's already kind of with Tyson. I think all the other Big Brothers, though, are in a little bit of trouble going forward. Like, I just don't know if Kylan, Derek X, Alyssa, and David are going to necessarily be able to, like, necessarily band together the same way some of the survivors will. But I do think, you know, Xavier was playing the game when he got rid of Tiffany, and I think it's one of those things where it's like, it's a brand new game, and it's a physical game. Xavier is a physical competitor. Xavier could have won that challenge too. That's the thing. Xavier and Shan had all the power in the world to win that challenge, but they lost.
Yep,
and that's one of those things.
They lost.
Like, they lost to David. Like, David beat them, and it's like David is someone who is notorious for not doing well in competition.
And
so
that's
like,
that's the thing,
you know,
is that you can be upset, because then here's the thing: what's the fallout from Alyssa and Xavier if Xavier wins? That's part of the game. But they got to know that. And one of the other things, and again, this is why I do give Alyssa a lot of credit, because people were really coming after her after that episode. They were coming after her. And one of the things she said was, imagine having a platform and using it to slander other,
Yeah.
other people. And that's,
Yeah.
that's the truth, is that the game was played a year ago, but then CBS knowingly invites them back in to play this game. How are you not going to feel that way? And
Right.
again, I think the biggest and most important thing, Wendell puts it best. You can support the mission and feel burned at the same time, because
Yeah.
they all had to sit in the jury house and feel the burn.
Yeah.
And
It's
now you have the shot to win money again.
and the thing
The
is,
burn is
in a
still there.
in a competition where the finale is solely physical, you don't want Xavier there. If it was just like Derek F
No,
and
no,
like
you do
Azza and
not
maybe
want
Hannah
Xavier
Chada,
there.
here's the thing: if it was like Hannah Chada, Hannah Chada, Big D, and Azza there, and Alyssa was making this move, it'd be like, why? Like you're just doing it out of pettiness. But the fact that you're doing it against a big player, and keep in mind the last season these people watched before they filmed this was Survivor 41. Who was the big ringleader in Survivor 41? Shan. You have the opportunity to
Shan.
get Shan and Xavier in that dangerous position. I would take it
Mm-hmm.
too. I don't know if honestly, she probably shouldn't have even said anything along the lines of the cookout and revenge. She probably just shouldn't have used those words if she didn't want no backlash at all. But like at the same time, again, you can support the mission for your season, but on this brand new show, if he's a physical competitor like Xavier and you have the shot to potentially send him home, also they were giving him an opportunity to stay. That's the thing with the challenge is you're not voted out of the game. You're voted into a challenge where then you or not even voted, but you're sent into a challenge by the winners of the last challenge to fight for your life. And that's what they did. Xavier and Shan could have won that challenge. And if they had, that would have been an interesting dynamic. And then you can come for Alyssa, and then that's the game. But that's the thing about the challenge is you can win the challenge is to survive. And they didn't. And I'm not saying that's they're not deserving of being there. They're not great competitors, because they are. I think Shan is the best strategist we've seen in this new era of Survivor, her and Omer. But like still, that makes you a threat. And it's not like you're
Right.
sending Azza and Big D into a final. Like you're sending Xavier and Shan, two of the biggest strategists of the last year, into a final. And same with Tiffany. And I think that's just where
Right.
that differential line is drawn. But I don't really even want to say winner picks, because it's like it's purely
Nah, I
physical. And
think I know who I.
you can kind of go for stats. And there may be some spoilers out there that I don't want to even dive into. But
Oh,
good
I've not
season.
seen them.
Looking forward to seeing what happens next. But let's transition completely into a different territory. Bachelorette,
Yeah, and
which
now to
this
talk
season
about
seems
love.
strategic. This seems a little strategic because there are two, and I think that's the big topic. Is there are two bachelorettes? We have not
Oh
talked
my
about this
God.
yet, and now we have finally
At
gotten to the
all.
stage where they are on their own separate journeys. What started as all the guys getting to know all the girls, or both girls. Both girls didn't get the chance to see all the guys, to meet all the guys as much as they would have liked to. Canceled the first rose ceremony, but sent home the twins and the magician because they felt no connection with them, and they both felt no connection with them. They all went, made connections. A few guys kind of had connections with both. Logan being one, which we'll talk about. But yeah, like
Oh boy.
the guys had connections with both, but then in the end they had to split off. The girls giving out roses, and some guys rejecting Rachel because they wanted to stay for Gabby, and then Gabby at the end being like, "But I already picked my guys, so like you're going home." And then all these guys go home because they just didn't want to be with Rachel. I think that's idiotic. I think this girl wants you. This girl's choosing you. Why not give it a shot? And then if you realize you're not into it, kind of like what Logan's doing, and this is where I give him credit. He acknowledged as soon as he felt that, he's like, I need to go talk to them. The problem is because of the
Right.
Hayden drama this week, he didn't get the chance to talk to
He
them,
didn't get to
and
talk to
that's going
them,
to be
and now
messy.
he had to
That's going
accept
to
a
be messy.
rose. Oh, it's gonna
That's
be
going to
bad.
be messy.
It's gonna be so
Yeah,
bad.
but
It's
but
gonna be
what I
really
was going
bad.
to say though is like I think I feel bad for Rachel with all the guys rejecting her. I think that's shitty of them. I do like how Meatball was like, "Hey, I made a mistake. I want to come back. I don't think this is. I think it was unfair of me to deny your rose. I'd like to get a second chance." And we see him being one of the reasons why she's able to weave out the Hayden bullshit, because he comes
Yeah.
up to her and it's like, "Listen, you need to hear these things," and he gets a rose not because of it, but he gets a rose because she trusts him because of it. So like, I think Meatball
Yep.
approached this well, but like Logan, he's in a tough spot. But what do you think about this double Bachelorette dynamic before we get into our favorites and our least favorites and stuff? Because we've seen a lot of the duo and camaraderie between these women, which I love to see. It's almost like kind of like the having the two Bachelorette hosts, Tayshia and Caitlyn, with Katie and with Michelle. Like I like that dynamic. But like, what do you think about in terms of just the overall season format? Do you like this format? Because I do, but I'd like to get your thoughts since we haven't talked about it.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I definitely like it better than a regular Bachelorette season, only because I feel like a regular Bachelorette season, because there's no, I mean, this is so weird, but it almost kind of makes sense for there to be like a union leader, like union leader Aaron. It makes sense for there to be a union leader because then, I mean, when one of the things that I feel like you don't often get to discuss is like, and again, I think we can say this is two red-blooded men in this world. Like when it comes to having conversations like about women and about who you're interested in, guys tend to show their true colors when, you know, unfortunately you're like talking about a situation in a scenario with multiple women, and that is when men become like the absolute grossest and worst versions of themselves, in my full opinion. So to see, like, I honestly, I'm glad you brought the meatball thing up with Hayden, because like that's when we get to see the best versions of people in the most, you know, useful of in the actually like truly useful of ways, right? The thing like union leader Aaron with the Thomas bullshit, that I think is such a poor way to showcase like the camaraderie between people on this earth, because it's like everyone coming together when all Thomas did was talk about how he kind of wants to be the Bachelor if this doesn't work out, which how the hell are you not all going to think that? By the way, kudos to Thomas and Becca for getting engaged.
Yes.
Joke's on you, joke's on you, union leader Aaron. Thomas is happier than ever. But I think that like the thing that's amazing about what would be either two bachelorettes or even two bachelors is like you get to see the people and the women and the men come together for the right reason, right? To say like, hey, Hayden's talking about both of you, and in not great ways.
That was Logan.
And then
Logan.
you get
Hayden was the one talking about comparing Rachel to his girlfriend and talking about her boobs and
oh no
bitches.
I am talking about Hayden, because Hayden is also the one who said to Gabby, "You're rough around the edges."
Oh yeah,
But the thing again, like he's taught, the way he speaks about both of you is so terrible. It's not just it's a Gabby thing and he really wasn't interested. No, he's just not a good guy. And
I think there's a way to say, "Hey, Gabby, I'm more gonna pursue Rachel." That's all you have to say. Not, I think you're a little rough around the edges. Yeah, I agree with you. I forgot about that because I was behind. But yes, I agree. Yeah.
I think that's what I love, because it allows for the men to do that. It allows for Gabby and Rachel to really showcase how important it is to have strong female friendships. And because Gabby was able to go to Rachel and be like, "Hey, is Logan the one with the long hair?"
The
Who's the one with the long hair?
Eric, I believe, is his name.
Not mullet. Blonde hair, beard, blonde long hair.
Jacob.
I have two things. Yeah. I'm either on or moron, idiot.
Let me look. It's hard to keep track of all these guys' names when we haven't been talking about them.
I know there's so many, and we haven't ever talked about it. But I think what's
Fabio,
beautiful is that
Fabio is Jacob. I call him Fabio. Yes, Jacob. The one who wrote in the shirtless.
But what's beautiful is that like you get to see them come together and work together. Of course, you have moments like in this last episode, Rachel being upset that all of Gabby's guys were, you know, fawning over her and her guys weren't even looking at her. But unfortunately, like, again, I hate to say it, that is just like, that's a human thing. That's like a lot of people do that and react that way because because the producers put her in that position. Why did you make her go watch?
And
like, that's one of those things.
You're not on your date, and I get it. Like, she wanted to make eye contact with these guys, but here's the thing. Like, I'm thinking of like, if I'm with someone, a partner, and you know, you're at like a barbecue with a bunch of friends and stuff, are you always going to be looking at your partner the whole time? Maybe not. Are you going to maybe glance over at them, talk to them? Maybe. But again, it was more about Gabby's date. And the thing with Rachel, I love Rachel as a person. I don't think she's the best choice for Bachelorette. Just seeing what we've seen in terms of her getting a little, I don't want to say emotional because a lot of people get emotional. That's the part of the show. You're supposed to get emotional, but like,
easily offended, easily heated.
Yeah. I think you have to have a little bit more, be a little bit more forgiving about things like that when the guys aren't looking at you. It's like, and she's like, oh, and there's Tino jumping up and down. Like, Tino had the best day with you yesterday. Like, Tino's fine. It's just he wants to be there with the other guys because also these guys form friendships. We see Aaron and James on Bachelor in Paradise. Like, these guys form friendships. And I think that's one of those things that she wasn't really grasping at first, whereas Gabby's just very kind of, you know.
Do you remember when you hated Gabby?
I didn't hate Gabby. Just week one, her voice.
I'm kidding.
But But now
I know.
ever since week one
But
of
she's so
playing the
wonderful.
season, I like her. She's wonderful, and honestly, if I was there, I'd be there for Gabby too. And I get why the guys were
I'd be
rejecting
there for
Rachel and going
Rachel.
for Gabby if they were there for Gabby, because like you don't
Right.
want to like waste your time with someone, but like I think there's also a way about going
Right.
about it and saying it. I think at this phase, though, all the guys who are there for Gabby are there for Gabby, and all the guys except for Logan who are there for Rachel are there for Rachel. I think
Right.
Logan's going to be a bit of a problem, and I think this is kind of what ABC wanted when they casted two Bachelorettes was let's see what happens
Mm-hmm.
when they both like the
Well,
same guy and that drama. But I think we haven't gotten that yet because really there hasn't been
and
one guy
here,
that both girls are into. The only guys that were kind of talking to both were Mario and Logan, and now Mario seems a little bit more Gabby's camp. Because he was her first impression, Rose. But also, like, I think Logan, I haven't seen the spark with Logan and Gabby necessarily recently, so I don't know
no,
if Gabby's going to feel
I've
that
only
way.
seen
I
it.
think it's
I've
more
only
about
seen it with
Rachel
Rachel.
being hurt with Logan. Yeah, so I don't know.
Um,
I think it's going to be interesting, but again, they almost seem too close that they're not going to let any guy get between their friendship.
right.
And I think that's where ABC is going to lose a little bit of the drama, is that they're not going to get that fight that they want with Rachel and Gabby. But honestly, I don't know which bachelorettes would fight. I don't think it's going to be like a Bachelor in
No,
Paradise where you have these huge personalities who would fight over a guy.
you would
I really
need
do
you
think
would need to
I think it's gonna be
bring.
bad for Logan, but I don't think it's gonna necessarily get too explosive between the girls.
You would have needed to bring in two bachelorettes who really do. I mean, like
It's
it's like
Shanae.
bringing in. Well, literally, it would be like bringing in like Katie Thurston and Victoria as the bachelorettes in one
Yes.
season.
Yes.
You
Yes.
need two very opposing personalities to create the drama. But again, here I am. Here I am on my soapbox for the ABC producers. Listen, man, freaking do something, do different, because again,
Well, this is different. I like the
I
two
mean, or
girls.
not do
It creates
different,
a new
not do
element.
different as in like do different like things, but like again, like I hate seeing Rachel painted as like you said, like you don't want to say emotional, but like you're painting her as overly emotional because she's getting upset at the guys for like hyping up the other guys. But the truth of the matter is, like, I mean, we had that date where Gabby's guys were all complimenting each other more than they were complimenting her. But she did a really, really responsible thing and was like, you know what? I don't have a rose to give out. I don't have a rose to give out right now, and I'm sorry about that. Like,
Yeah.
I think what they're doing,
Upfront with
what
it.
the Bachelor producers love doing is they love putting the girls in these scenarios where they're forced to feel a certain way. Like, again, you did not need to bring Rachel to this date to watch Gabby's guys fawn all over her while your guys, supported their friends that they're literally living in a mansion with.
Mhm.
But they do it because they know who
Or a
their
cruise
they
ship.
know who their lead is.
Yeah.
Shut
Okay.
up. But they
It's a
know who
mansion
their
on the
they know
sea.
who they know who their they know who their leads are. And again, I think it's great because I love having Gabby and Rachel together. I think it's beautiful. I think Gabby would be fine on her own. I think Rachel would not, and I think that that's why it's great that they're there together because America wanted so much for Rachel and they wanted so much for Gabby, but instead of just one, you got both, which I think is awesome. But I'm getting again my endless frustration with ABC
Producers.
is the producers. They create needless drama. I hope and pray that they both end up with someone at the end of this season.
I think they will.
Again, I don't really have any super big front runners. I think Zach is a big front runner for Rachel.
I know you want Zach and Rachel to be together.
Well, not
Because
even.
Zach,
I
for
mean, but
anyone
not
listening,
even.
Zach's wife is named Rachel, so it would be poetic. It
But
would be cute.
but
But
not
they
even.
they
But
really
not
hit
even
it
like
off well.
they do. Her Tino obviously and her have a great chemistry. Who's who? What is the name of the guy who Gabby had her one-on-one in Paris with?
Jason.
Was that
Jason.
it was her and Jason were great. Nate's
Yeah.
great. I mean, like,
I
and
love Nate,
Gabby
yeah.
was Gabby was super mature with Nate too, being like, I like him a lot, but like, I really do need to consider, am I ready to be a mother on top of being a wife before I even like get to think about it?
Yeah.
I
That
think
could be a
that
Michael A
the
situation
guys,
if that breakup
right,
happens. Yeah.
the guys in this season are really, really fantastic. I think both of the girls are really, really fantastic. Now it's very early, so it's still, a lot could go downhill real quick. But I'm really hopeful that that's not the case. I'm
Yeah.
really hoping that we get a good amount of camaraderie and support before we even think
Yeah.
of moving into, a different realm.
Yeah, I honestly think with Gabby and Rachel as bachelorettes, I think Gabby, the difference is that Gabby gets upset at the words she hears, the "you're rough around the edges" thing. That is rough to hear. She has justification in feeling upset. Rachel gets upset at the unsaid, and I think that's where
Right.
the difference lies. Gabby should get upset at someone saying you're rough around the edges. You should cry at that. She didn't even cry, I don't think. She just got upset. Maybe she cried. Rachel, though, is getting
I don't
upset at things
remember.
she's not hearing and jumping to conclusions. I think that's the difference. And I think just Rachel uh, is gonna make she's. I think she's making it tougher on herself, honestly. And
Yes.
I because I love Rachel, I hope she doesn't continue this because I think she deserves to just be open minded and not jump to conclusions. Whereas Gabby isn't really jumping to conclusions. She's just like, she's she, I don't know the words because she also had that moment where she was observing and said, "I'm not going to give out a rose." But I think the difference is just how they went about it. I think Rachel's a much more
Right.
emotional person. I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic with the two of them, though. But looking at front runners,
Yes.
I like Jason for Gabby. I just think he's too quiet. But she keeps talking about
Yeah.
how she likes that.
She
It's like,
says that she likes that.
yeah, which could work, but also I just think I've seen a lot with her and Eric that I really like, and Nate. Nate is my favorite for Gabby right now. I think Nate is just such a loving guy, and they really hit it off. But the kid thing might be something, but she gave him a rose regardless. So I don't know if
Yes.
that's as big of a problem as she thinks it is. As for Rachel, I think her and Tino have the lust right away. Like their sexual chemistry is really there. They like are really into one another. But I think emotionally, her and Zach make the most sense. So like I think Zach and
Yeah.
Nate are like the emotional picks for me. But in terms of like just overall, I think Tino and probably Eric are my two that I'm thinking. I really just don't know though. I think Mario has been nowhere since the first impression rose. Like I'm surprised that he's even still around. I'm surprised he got the first impression given how little they've given him with Gabby since. Tyler was a nice surprise this week. It was nice to see more of him. It was nice to see more of Spencer this week. They both got roses. I want to see more of Avon because he's one of the first three roses every time. So I'm like, why aren't we seeing more of Avon? Johnny, who we know is going to be on Bachelor in Paradise, spoiler alert, because we've heard a lot about Johnny on Bachelor in Paradise. Bachelor in Paradise is tough because those spoilers are everywhere and you can't dodge them. But
Yeah,
Johnny is very much
you can't really dodge those.
Johnny's a big personality on Bachelor in Paradise, so we know he doesn't win this, but I want to see more of him so that we can root for him on Paradise. Very interesting cast. Logan is the one though that we're most interested to see. What do you think is going to go down? Because he obviously wants to talk to both, but he accepted a rose from Rachel. I get not wanting to do it at the rose ceremony, but like he could have pulled her aside beforehand and be like, "Listen, we need to talk," or
Yeah.
but I think what he wanted to do was talk to Gabby first. Because if Gabby, here's what I don't like is that he wants us to talk to Gabby first. If Gabby says, Logan, I don't like you, then he can go back to Rachel and everything's fine. But the bachelorettes are going to compare notes. So it's not going to go well
Yeah.
either way, whether he talks to Rachel first or Gabby.
I think
His plan is if it doesn't go well with Gabby, he's just going to default back to Rachel, which I think is also shitty to Rachel. And so I don't see this ending well for him either way, unless Gabby's like, no, Logan, I do really like you. Come be with me. And then we might see some tiff between Gabby and Rachel.
Right.
But I really just don't know how this ends well for him. I just don't see him. I don't see him surviving the week, especially considering we still have a lot of other guys that have just such better chances. And Logan got the last rose.
Yeah, I think this is just not gonna end well. I think it's one of those things where he's not 100% in on Gabby. He's not 100% in on Rachel, and therefore they're probably just going to be like, "Well, if you're not 100% on either of us, then you got to go."
Yeah, I think the problem is he is much more in Gabby's camp now. Like he's more like I'm into Gabby,
Right.
but again, like I just don't know. I wouldn't have accepted a rose from Rachel if I was leaning the other way, but obviously he didn't want to go home because he wants to pursue stuff with Gabby. That'll be very interesting. But that was our Bachelorette talk. We talked a lot about a lot, but we caught up on a lot. We're gonna try to podcast sooner. Our next one because we're gonna get the end of our pre-jury phase for Big Brother. We're gonna get this Logan drama and Bachelorette, and we're gonna see another episode of the challenge by the time we talk next. So I'm really excited. These three shows, I'm enjoying all of them, and we're gonna get a Survivor cast reveal hopefully soon. Maybe a little later because
I think we'll probably get it.
The Survivor premiere is usually the night of the Big Brother finale, so like we're
I think we'll probably get it towards the end of the month. I think we'll get it towards the end of the month.
Yeah, maybe
so that we get a little bit of time.
I'm very excited for that as well. I've seen some. Obviously, we've seen the trailer, so we see a few personalities. But I'm just excited in general, just that everything's back. And I know we don't talk about food on here except for our actual recipe for reality. But MasterChef is also in full swing. I need to catch up on that. That's a lot of fun.
I have to watch.
So. Yeah, it's really good. But two of your MasterChef juniors are now in the All Stars for adults, so that's fun. Dara and
Who?
Shane are the two that they pulled over. I don't know if you remember either. Dara was season
Oh,
1. Shane,
yes.
I forget what season he was, but they're now older because this is like the All Star season for MasterChef. So they're bringing back all these
Yep.
older contestants, and they have two of the younger MasterChef juniors who are now older than 18. One, I think Shane is 18, Dara is like 20, and they are able to compete with the adults, which is really cool. But I'm excited to be talking about all this reality television with you, Zach. Zach, where can they find you? Any
Always.
last words
Always.
on all this?
Yeah, this was, I mean, I'm glad we finally are able to catch up. You guys know where you can find me. It's at Zacharaba39 on Twitter, at ZLove with 3 E's on Instagram,
I'll add that.
at
I'll add that
ZLove
next
with
time.
3
The
E's.
TikTok, yeah, and the
Oh,
Instagram.
sweet. And I was
I'll
going
add
to
that
say, and
next week.
amazing. Yeah, you can find me. I mean, we're about to go back into school in about a month, which is slowly killing my soul. But it's been a nice summer. I'm excited. I think Dylan and I, like you said, we're gonna try and catch up a little more weekly. Maybe we'll do a couple, especially as we head into the jury phase and we get to talk about strategy about how people handle things. Maybe we'll do post eviction things. Maybe we'll do like post veto kind of situations, and just
I was also
more
thinking
to talk about.
if I don't have to work and you don't have to work on the double eviction / triple eviction night, I think it'd be fun to live
Oh, we
stream
need
and
to
watch
debrief.
along.
We need the live stream.
I think it'd be a lot of fun to like watch as it's happening, because that's the stuff that
Yes.
we don't get spoilers for. Because Big Brother, it's tough because we see it all coming throughout the week. Like we knew about the Amira blindside before the Sunday night nominations had even happened that week. So like it's gonna be fun to like watch
Right.
along fresh, not knowing anything. But if I'm off of work, I definitely want to make that happen. Assuming we'll get a double or a triple. I hope we don't get a triple. Honestly, I don't like the triple.
We're supposed.
But
I will tell you, based on Twitter, again, spoiler girl. It's always with a grain of salt. I did hear we're about to get we're about to get double eviction.
Double. When? Do we know?
Double. You know what, Dylan? Tell them where
Definitely
they can find you, and I'll tell you what I can find.
Well, also, I forget. Did we get a double or a triple last year? Because we definitely got a double with Tiffany and Hannah. I can't remember.
We only got doubles. We only got doubles.
Did we get 2 doubles though?
Last year, I think we got 2 doubles.
Did we also get a double with Claire and Alyssa? Am I not mistaken? I can't remember.
Yes, that is correct.
That is such a shame. Oh, because they were back to back. That's right. There was 2 weeks in a row where we got double evictions, and I didn't like that because here's the thing: if you're gonna have a double eviction, do not make it the week the leftovers are gonna be final 7 and 8. Don't do it, or 7 and 6.
Right.
Don't do it at 7 and 6.
Right.
Do it at like 10 and 9, or do it at 9 and 8, because we cannot see the leftovers finally turn on one another. If they make it to final 7, we can't see that happen on a double, because that was the worst part of last year's eviction. Okay, here we go. Yeah, let me just see. Yeah, Alyssa and Claire in the same night, and then Tiffany and Hannah in the same night. Yeah, that was awful. But also I don't love the triple because it's almost like it's 2 weeks of Big Brother. It's fun to watch a whole week of Big Brother in one night, but it's not fun to see like 2 full weeks of Big Brother in one night, because I feel like you lose a lot of like the potential to have power shifts and all that. So like I hope we get a double, and I hope it's either early in the jury phase or like I don't know. I hope it's early in the jury phase. I hope it's like the week we lose like Jasmine and Indy as like our 2 like last remaining floaters before the leftovers turn on one another or something, because it's gonna be okay.
So,
do you have the information?
Dylan, I think it might be crazy.
Oh no.
I think it might be. I think it might be this week.
I feel like Julie would have teased it. No.
I think it. Well, you got to remember tomorrow is Sunday.
Sure
tomorrow is Sunday. Yeah. Well. So I don't think we've ever gotten a double eviction before going into jury, but what we did get was we got the first member of the jury in BB19. Cody went to jury, and then immediately Elena followed him out in a double. So I don't know if we've ever gotten.
Yeah, that's what I would have hoped. I don't think we'll do a double where one is in jury, one is not, unless they're both not, and the jury is smaller this year. Who knows? I don't know.
I mean, again, it's one of those. I don't think it's a double eviction. It's usually 2 hours. Again, it's one of those like that's what the word on Twitter is. Again,
we'll
that
keep our eyes open, our ears open.
Unless I will say the only thing I can think is what they haven't said is whoever ends up on the block on eviction night, both of them go home. That would be crazy, because then it would be a Daniel Kyle.
Yeah, I don't think
again, it's all speculation. You take it with a grain of salt.
Double. Yeah, unless they do because also in a double they would have to get rid of the duos, I think, because that would just be too much. I think, or they do a double with the duos. I don't know. It'll be interesting. Anyway, you can find me at Dylan.
When it happens, we'll be here.
Yes, we'll be here. I got to run because I have to do things at 3. But thank you all so much for watching. Next time, chat it up. We didn't have too many live chats, but Nina did say Michael for the win. So let's hope that Michael wins it for Zach and Nina's sake and Rachel's sake. Send us all your questions or comments down below, and we'll be excited to talk, hopefully very soon, about the future. See you next time.
Love.